Self-Development Lee TV. A young British woman tells her story of North Korea. A British woman followed her diplomat husband to Pyongyang, North Korea for 2 years. The daily lives of the people he saw and felt behind the scenes of the socialist regime and the affectionate interactions he shared with them still live on in his memory 2 years after returning home. Lindsay Miller, 33, a composer and music director, collected photos and stories from diplomats' spouses and others she met during her stay in North Korea from 2017 to 2019 and published them in a book in May 2021. The title of the 200-page book is unconventional: North Korea, Like Nowhere Else. Before arriving in North Korea, he expected the people to be cold robots, especially foreigners, and he assumed they would be aloof or hostile. But after living in Pyongyang for 2 years, Miller says he was wrong. The North Koreans he met were friendly and warm. Foreigners often look at North Korea with preconceived notions of feverishness, collective labor, and missiles, he says. So they assume that North Koreans must be very strict and rigid, but they're just like us. Grandmothers and grandfathers cuddling their grandchildren, families loving each other. Around Pyongyang, as well as on country roads, it was common to see soldiers crammed into the back of military trucks traveling between towns and villages. The soldiers Miller saw were not stiff and intimidating, but young men who smiled and said hello. The soldiers exchanged greetings, and one of them gave Miller a kiss on the hand. A definite change. Miller noticed small changes in the otherwise homogenized atmosphere of North Korean society. One afternoon, he saw a young couple walking hand in hand in front of the Rodong Sinmun newspaper, a symbol of crackdowns and sanctions. He photographed the scene and included it in his book. In addition, he often saw young people he had never imagined before. Young students were carrying backpacks with characters from the Walt Disney Company. Who would have thought that a Disney bag, a symbol of American culture, could be seen in North Korea? I even saw Disney cartoons on North Korean state television. I wondered if North Koreans knew where those things came from. It's interacting with residents. Foreign residents were able to move around Pyongyang fairly freely. They were able to shop, eat out, and talk to people on the street with relative ease. Surprisingly, many North Koreans were able to speak basic English. Some even approached me to speak English. However, unlike tourists, there are rules and restrictions that foreign residents must follow. I was not allowed to use public transportation such as buses or taxis, nor was I allowed to visit North Koreans in their homes. I wasn't always able to speak freely with North Koreans, and I experienced a lot of surveillance. There were times when I met people on the street and had a casual conversation with them, only to have them turn around and walk away. I would look around and see a man in a suit standing there. Shops in downtown Pyongyang were also not very welcoming to strangers. Sometimes, even if there were several customers in the store, they would tell Miller that they were closed when he walked in. It was the young women of Pyongyang that Miller found most interesting, especially those her own age. It was striking to see how they were changing the way they thought about relationships, marriage, and careers. The young women I met in Pyongyang valued work and career more than marriage and childbirth. They were very curious about why I didn't have children even though I was married. Some talked about how tired they were of working long hours, and some said they didn't want to get married. Of course, these were the elite in Pyongyang, and most of the people I met were in the upper echelons of North Korean society and had had a lot of contact with outsiders. He lived in Munsudong, an area in eastern Pyongyang that is home to the diplomatic complex, which houses embassies, international agencies, and international aid organizations. It wasn't a big place, and the power was sometimes spotty, but he didn't have too many problems living there. I had satellite TV and internet access, but it was very slow. There is an expatriate school in the diplomatic complex, but it's not very high quality, so most diplomats' children are homeschooled. Before leaving for North Korea, Miller was advised to bring dollars, euros, and renminbi, the most common foreign currencies used there. To his surprise, he was not given crumpled-up dollars. Shortly after arriving, a local driver gave me $1 at the airport parking meter, but it was rejected as crumpled and dirty. It's not uncommon in Pyongyang to receive treats like gum and juice instead of change for purchases. In department stores, change was often given back in North Korean won. Foreigners were not allowed to use automated teller machines, ATMs. If they ran out of foreign cash, they would ask a friend who was out of the country for a while to give it to them. Many foreigners picked up cash at ATMs in the North Korean border city of Dandong. A short but intense memory. The 2018 U.S.-North Korea summit left Miller with the most interesting and intense memory. He had already been following the news on foreign news outlets, but North Korean broadcasters announced the summit a day late. North Koreans he knew came up to him wondering what was going on and asked him to explain. Large photos of Kim and Trump shaking hands with the slogan, "We are one," went up in downtown Pyongyang. Rumors abounded that North Koreans were listening to South Korean music and then watching South Korean TV shows, but Miller hadn't seen or heard anything himself. Accessing South Korean content in North Korea is a criminal offense punishable by up to 5 years in prison. North Koreans even asked Miller if he had been to Seoul and what it was like. One North Korean showed him a photo of a beach in Bali and stared at it for a long time, saying it was beautiful. They asked a lot about British culture, but seemed to have little understanding of issues like gender equality and same-sex marriage. This was Miller's first visit to South Korea since returning to the UK from North Korea. Having already lived in North Korea, it was especially poignant for him, and he felt particularly emotional at the DMZ. Even though the border is closed, we shouldn't close our hearts to North Korea. There are people living in North Korea, he said at the end of the interview. Source, Kim Hak-soon, Korea Foundation for International Exchange. Thanks for watching.